Yo, let me talk to you straight, no fluff, no filters. When we say we trust God's guidance, we ain't talking about some pretty church quote to toss on a t-shirt. We talking about real life faith, the kind you need when the lights go out, the money gone, your circle gets quiet, and the world don't care if you make it or not. Psalm 32 seed 8 says, I will instruct you and teach you in the way you should go. I will counsel you with my loving eye on you. That ain't just scripture. That's survival when everything else falls through. See, when God says he'll instruct you, he's saying, I got you. Not just when life is smooth, but when everything around you is screaming panic. Sometimes we think God's guidance is a soft whisper, something you feel only in a church pew or a quiet moment. But real ones know. Sometimes his voice comes in the form of a slammed door, a fake friend exposed, a plan falling apart so another can be born. That's how he teaches. That's how he guides. Ain't nothing more painful than thinking you're on the right track just to watch it crash. But what if that's him rerouting you? We gotta stop thinking trust means knowing everything. Trust means we move even when we don't. You think when soldiers walk into war, they know exactly how it's gonna play out. No, they just know who they're following. That's how it is with God. He ain't showing you the whole map. He's just giving you the next step. And sometimes that step makes no sense. It looks wild. You question it. You want to fall back, but you take it anyway. That's faith. That's power. And here's the cold truth. You won't always feel peace while you're walking in God's will. Sometimes you feel pressure, doubt, even pain. But underneath it, there's a foundation that don't move. That's the peace. It's not in your feelings. It's in his promise. The word says he'll counsel us with his loving eye. Think about that. He's not just watching. He's watching with love. That means he sees where you've been. He sees where you're headed. And he still says, keep walking. I got you. The streets will teach you to trust no one. Life will condition you to believe that if you don't take control, you'll lose it all. But faith flips that. Faith says, let go to gain. Surrender to win. That's the kingdom way. That's the step of peace. You don't have to manipulate, force, or chase. You just follow. It might not look like a win on the scoreboard, but God's guidance don't lose. And yeah, it's hard. I ain't gonna lie to you. It's hard to trust when everything in you wants to fight, fix, or flee. But real trust is when you say, even if it don't feel right now, I know he's still right. Even when the money low, even when the pain loud, even when people switch on you, you stand 10 toes down and say, I'll walk where he tells me to walk. That's strength. That's freedom. So when Psalm 32 feet 8 says he'll guide you, believe it like your life depends on it. Because it does. Not just your physical life, but your peace, your purpose, your legacy. Trust his hand, trust his plan. Take that step even if it's shaky. The path ain't always lit, but the one leading it is. That's enough. Let's keep it all the way real. Life will try to teach you not to trust nobody. Not people, not the system. Sometimes not even yourself. You grow up watching folks make promises and break them. You see dreams get dropped, hearts turn cold, and prayers go quiet. So when somebody tells you to trust God's guidance, it don't always land right. You're like, how can I trust someone I can't see when I can barely trust the ones I do? But that's where the shift happens. That's where God's voice cuts through the noise, where Psalm 32:8 hits different. It says, I will instruct you and teach you in the way you should go. I will counsel you with my loving eye on you. That verse don't come from theory. It comes from a place of deep promise. It's not about you being perfect. It's about God being present. See, when you start trusting God, you start walking with a new kind of rhythm. You stop chasing approval. You stop forcing doors open. And you start tuning your ear to something higher. His instructions ain't always loud, and they for sure ain't always easy. But they're always right. There's been times you wanted to run, but something told you to stay. Times you wanted to snap, but something said, hold your peace. That something was God's eye on you. And he don't just see your moves, he sees your heart. He sees your fears, your questions, your pain, and he still says, I'll guide you. But let's talk about what that looks like in real time. Because we ain't living in a fairy tale. We living in places where survival sometimes feel like the only goal. You got pressure from all sides, bills, family expectations, loss, betrayal. And through all that, you're supposed to believe there's a plan.
Yeah.
Because God's plan don't fold under pressure. It gets clearer in it. His guidance doesn't come wrapped in comfort. It comes in moments where everything else has fallen, but something inside you stands still. That stillness is him. That's the peace that don't make sense to the world, but it makes all the difference in you. It's not that the problems vanish. It's that they don't break you like they used to. You start moving different. Not because the fight got easier, but because you finally realized you ain't fighting alone. And here's the part nobody really tells you. Trusting God doesn't always feel good. Sometimes he tells you no when your heart is screaming wise. Sometimes he shuts doors you begged him to open. That kind of pain cuts deep. But what if that closed door saved your life? What if that heartbreak protected your purpose? What if that delay was the setup for a breakthrough you didn't see coming? You don't always get the answers right away, but you get the peace of knowing you're not out here blind. You're being led, step by step. Even when your leg's shaking, even when your voice cracking, even when your heart breaking, you're still moving forward because his hand is still on you. So the real flex, it ain't in having it all figured out. It's in following even when you don't. It's trusting the God who sees the whole story when you're stuck in a painful chapter. It's saying, I don't know where this leads, but I know who's leading. That's faith. That's power. That's how you walk in peace, even in the middle of war. So trust him, not just with your Sundays, but with your silence, with your struggle, with your whole self. He's already got the map. You just got to move when he says move. Life teaches us early not to lean too heavy on anybody. People fail. Circumstances shift. One day you're up, the next you're wondering how it all fell apart. That kind of reality makes it hard to trust, even harder to surrender. But Psalm 32:8 cuts through all that. It's God speaking directly, saying, I will instruct you and teach you in the way you should go. I will counsel you with my loving eye on you. That's not a suggestion. That's a promise. God's not like them. He doesn't ghost you when it gets hard. He doesn't guide you halfway and dip. He walks with you step for step in every season, every silence, every setback. But you got to be willing to trust even when the map ain't clear. That's the real challenge, not hearing God, but trusting him when what he says doesn't match what you see. A lot of times we think guidance from God is going to come with ease, like a GPS with a calm voice and perfect timing. But that ain't how the walk works. Sometimes his instruction shows up in storms. Sometimes he teaches through losses. You might think the pain you're in is proof he's gone, but really it's proof he's working. Pain will strip your pride, your plans, your distractions, and that's when his voice starts to hit different. It's like when all your options run dry and all you got left is faith. That's when you finally lean in. That's when you realize that his way isn't just another choice. It's the only way that leads to real peace. When you're walking blind, feeling like everything familiar has faded, that's when God's eye is most present. He watches you with love, not just to protect you from what's outside, but to guide you back to what's true inside. He sees your beginning, your end, and every twist in between, and he's still saying, follow me. Now here's where the growth gets real. When you stop treating God's voice like a backup plan. Too many times we come to God only after everything else breaks down. But what if we flipped it? What if we let his voice be the first one we move on? Trust like that changes how you see failure, how you handle rejection, how you walk through waiting seasons. You stop needing all the details and start leaning into his character. Because once you really know who he is, you realize he don't play with your life. He ain't careless with your calling. Everything he says, every path he lays, it's shaped by love. Not comfort, not convenience, love. And love will lead you even when it hurts. Because love sees the outcome when you're still stuck in the middle. It's easy to say you trust God when everything's going your way. But the real ones, the ones walking heavy in faith, are the ones still trusting when the road makes no sense. When God says, go, and all you see is risk. When he says, wet, and your heart's screaming to move. That's where the power is. Not in pretending to have peace, but in planting your feet in it anyway. Peace isn't found in understanding the plant. It's found in trusting the one who wrote it. When you surrender control, you gain clarity. Not always about what's next, but about who's with you. And once you know he's with you, you stop tripping over every twist in the journey. You learn to breathe deeper, walk slower, love stronger, and move wiser. That's what walking in God's guidance really looks like. Not perfection, not always confidence, but obedience, willingness, even through doubt, even with questions. That's what builds legacy. That's what brings peace. Not the kind the world gives, but the kind that holds you up when everything else crumbles. And all of it begins with a choice. Will you trust the one who sees it all, or will you keep trying to lead with eyes that only see half the story? Trusting God isn't some cute concept you throw around when life is smooth. It's not a quote for your bio or something to post when things are going your way. Trusting God is gritty. It's quiet. It's lonely sometimes. It's real faith in the middle of chaos. When nothing around you looks like a win, and everything in you wants to fix it your own way. Psalm 32:8 says, I will instruct you and teach you in the way you should go. I will counsel you with my loving eye on you. That means even when your world is spinning, he's locked in. He's got eyes on you, not to judge, not to control, but to guide. That kind of love ain't soft, it's solid. It doesn't flinch when you're lost, and it doesn't fold when you fall off track. It holds you when your strength can't, but you only learn that kind of love by walking with him through the unknown. God don't guide us like GPS. He don't always show the next 5 miles. Most times, he gives you just enough light for the next step. And that step might not feel right to your emotions. You might feel afraid, confused, maybe even angry. But that step is still yours to take. His teaching isn't just about direction, it's about transformation. He shows you the way, but while you're walking, he's also shaping your heart, molding your character, training your spirit to trust, not based on outcomes, but based on his voice. That's different. That's deeper. Because real faith isn't built in comfort. It's forged in the fire. In the moments you want to give up, but choose to stay anyway, that's when God becomes real, not just to your head, but to your soul. And let's be honest, trusting God also means trusting his timing. That's probably the hardest part. You see other people moving, posting wins, getting opportunities. Meanwhile, you're stuck waiting. You're grinding in silence. And the enemy starts whispering, God forgot you. But Psalm 32:8 reminds us, his eye is still on you. That means he sees what you don't. Sometimes the delay isn't punishment, it's protection. God's holding things back not to keep you down, but to set you up. You're not behind. You're being prepared. When God is your guide, he's not just getting you to the destination. He's making sure you're ready when you get there. And that kind of preparation doesn't happen fast. It happens in the dark, in the stretch, in the discipline. But it's always filled with purpose. You don't need to know the whole picture to walk in peace. You just need to know who's painting it. When you finally stop trying to run the show, when you lay your pride down and admit you don't have all the answers, that's when peace comes in. Not because things get easier, but because you stop carrying a weight that was never yours. Peace is what happens when you realize he's not just guiding you. He's walking with you, step by step, through every mistake, through every tear, through every silent night. And when you trust that you move different, you stop reacting out of fear. You stop forcing things. You walk with patience, with confidence, not in yourself, but in him. That's what trusting God really is. It's not weak. It's strength on a whole other level. It's a mindset, a lifestyle, a foundation you build your whole life on because you know he sees all, knows all, and still chooses to stay close to you. Trusting God doesn't start when life is easy. It usually begins when everything feels uncertain. You're at a crossroad, the pressure's high, the answers are low, and people don't understand what you're carrying. That's when Psalm 32:8 speaks the loudest. I will instruct you and teach you in the way you should go. I will counsel you with my loving eye on you. That verse is a lifeline, not a slogan. It's God saying, I see you. I know where you are. And I got you. Not just when you're strong, but especially when you're weak, when your confidence is low, when you're making choices with no guarantees. That's the space where real trust is born, not in the calm, but in the storm. And that trust doesn't grow overnight. It's built step by step through moments when you say, God, I don't understand, but I'll still follow. God's instruction doesn't always come the way we expect. We want signs, clarity, full direction. But most times he speaks through silence, through delay, through doors closing that you thought were meant to open. And if you're not careful, you'll mistake his redirection for rejection. But that's not what it is. His guidance is love in motion, even when it looks like a no. When God is guiding, he's also protecting. He's keeping you from what you thought you wanted so he can bring you into what you were really made for. You don't always see it at first. It can feel like loss, like confusion, like isolation. But later you look back and realize he was saving you. That job, that relationship, that opportunity, it wasn't part of the way he had planned. His instruction is always intentional, even when it's invisible. When you follow God, there will be seasons where it looks like nothing is happening. You pray, you move, you obey, and still nothing changes. That's when faith gets tested. That's when doubt starts creeping in. But faith is more than emotion. It's endurance. It's trusting that even if you can't feel it, he's still working. His eye is on you, not to monitor you like a critic, but to guide you like a father. And that changes everything, because knowing he sees you brings comfort when you feel unseen, when the world sleeps on you, when nobody checks in, when your value feels buried. His eye reminds you that you're not forgotten, you're not overlooked, you're in process, and God doesn't waste process. He uses it to build you from the inside out. Peace doesn't come from knowing what's next. It comes from knowing God is in what's next. When you let go of the need to control every detail, you start walking in a peace that's deeper than logic. A peace that says, I may not have the plan, but I have the guide. That kind of peace helps you sleep even when the answers haven't come. It helps you stay grounded even when others are sprinting in directions that look louder, faster, and more rewarding. You start understanding that slow progress with God is better than fast movement without Him. That's the kind of mindset that shifts your whole walk. It's not about chasing, it's about trusting, and peace becomes your position, not your prize. At the core of it all, trusting God means real surrender. Not partial, not conditional, but the kind that says, even if this hurts, even if I don't get what I want, I still believe your way is better. That's not weak faith. That's mature faith. The kind that grows in silence, the kind that keeps walking without applause, the kind that still believes when nothing makes sense. That kind of trust unlocks guidance, peace, and purpose you can't manufacture on your own. It's not about perfection. It's about posture. Keep your heart open, your ears tuned, and your steps ready. Because if He said He'll guide you, He will. Trusting God's guidance begins in the quiet places of uncertainty, where life doesn't offer easy answers and your own strength is stretched to its limits. Psalm 32:8 says, I will instruct you and teach you in the way you should go. I will counsel you with my loving eye on you. That isn't just encouragement, that's a divine promise. In a world that constantly demands quick results and constant motion, God invites you into something slower but deeper trust. The kind of trust that doesn't ask for full understanding, but simply says, God, if you're leading, I'm moving. This isn't blind faith, it's anchored faith. Faith that believes even when you can't see, even when you can't feel, even when everything in you is begging for control. And that's where real peace starts to grow. But let's be honest, God's guidance doesn't always feel like comfort. Sometimes it feels like confusion. You expected Him to show up with clarity, but instead He brings silence. You thought following Him meant open doors, but instead you run into closed ones. And yet, that's still His guidance. Because sometimes God leads by blocking what's not meant for you. He loves you too much to let you walk into something that looks good but would drain your soul. That delay you're experiencing, that denial, that hurt, it could be His protection in disguise. His no is often louder in love than a fake. Yes, that would leave you broken later. So trust doesn't always mean moving forward. Sometimes it means standing still and letting Him reroute the road. Following God also means tuning your ear to hear beyond the noise. The world is loud, opinions fly, expectations weigh heavy, but God's instruction often whispers, not because it's weak, but because it's personal. He's not trying to impress you, He's trying to guide you. And His counsel isn't generic, it's tailored, designed for your path, your calling, your assignment. That's why comparison kills trust. You can't follow God and envy someone else's journey at the same time. What He's doing with you might look slower, quieter, or even less exciting, but it's purposeful. Trust is knowing He's not late. He's building something solid, not surface level. And if you stay close enough to hear, you'll walk in wisdom the world can't give you. Even when God is guiding, fear doesn't always disappear, but the presence of fear doesn't cancel your faith. It just gives you a chance to choose it anyway. Trusting God doesn't mean you won't feel afraid. It means you keep walking even when fear shows up. It means you say yes while your knees shake. It means you surrender the illusion of control and believe that the one who sees the end from the beginning has your steps ordered. That's courage, not confidence in yourself, but confidence in the one who promised to never leave you. His loving eye is on you. That means He's not just sending instructions and stepping back. He's walking with you, guiding every step, carrying you when you're weak, correcting you when you drift, and celebrating when you obey. Peace isn't found in knowing the destination. It's found in trusting the direction. When God leads, He often won't show you the whole map. He gives you just enough to move, and that's on purpose, because if you saw everything, you'd try to control it. So He gives you daily bread, enough strength, enough clarity, enough grace for today. And when you learn to rest in that rhythm, peace becomes your default, not your reward. You don't need to chase it, you walk in it. Because peace doesn't come from answers, it comes from alignment. When you're in step with God, even the unknown doesn't shake you the same. So in the end, trusting God's guidance is about posture. It's about waking up every day and saying, not my way, your way. It's about choosing to walk when it's hard, to listen when it's quiet, and to believe even when it hurts. This isn't passive living, it's bold faith. And when you commit to walking that out, you'll look back and see what you couldn't see in the moment. Every step was part of his plan. Every delay had purpose. Every no was really a not yet. Every closed door was steering you closer to your calling. And through it all, his eye never left you, not for a second. So here's what it is. Trusting God's guidance ain't about perfection. It's about progress with purpose. Psalm 32:8 is the promise that even when you can't see the steps, he's already laid them. Stay solid. Keep's got you. Would you like this formatted as a spoken word piece or sermon notes too?